There's a reason the word smog was invented in California. In the 60s, the air was so polluted that parents wouldn't let their children outside to play. So the state stepped in and set air quality standards even before there was a federal Clean Air Act. So modern environmentalism was really born in California, and that sensibility is still embedded in the state's DNA. But in 2006, the state upped the ante in a big way by looking at a global problem, climate change.
We simply must do everything that we can in our power to slow down global warming.
That year, the legislature enacted a sweeping mandate to cut greenhouse gases that warm the planet. It's called the Global Warming Solutions Act. No one ever accused us of not thinking big. The law set ambitious goals to cut California's greenhouse gas output back to 1990 levels, and it was the kind of legislation that reached into every corner and crevice of people's homes, businesses, and public spaces. Dozens of laws and policies followed after that. For example, a goal to put 5 million electric cars on the road, a mandate that the state's utilities have to obtain half of their power from renewable sources like wind and sun. And in 2 years, in 2020, every new home in California must have solar panels on their roofs. And finally, the policy that has come to symbolize California's commitment to carbon cutting, cap and trade. It was the nation's first system that set a limit on industry emissions, and it created a market where these companies could buy and sell carbon credits. And basically, it allowed them to pay to pollute. Since its inception, that market has created a fund of nearly $6 billion, which goes to projects that also cut carbon, like building bike paths, building homes around public transportation, and giving people rebates to buy those electric cars we keep talking about. And the state just doesn't give up. All of those goals keep getting more and more strict and higher. And it kind of envisions a future of running the world's 5th largest economy on a carbon-free engine. But as you can imagine, there have been lots of critics. Among their complaints, that California is a nanny state that wags its green finger at everything businesses and people do. California it has a my way or the highway tone that says, this is the car you have to drive, here's how you build your house, and here's where it is. Perhaps the loudest complaint is an economic one, that these environmental laws are bossing businesses around, forcing companies to comply with thousands of pages of regulations that are very costly, discouraging companies from relocating to California, and financially crippling the ones who remain here. They're not completely wrong. The state itself estimates that companies spend billions of dollars per year to comply with climate change regulations. They're not the only ones who pay. The public pays too. State agencies spend about $2 billion a year to oversee all of these regulations. But officials say this is money well spent. For every dollar spent on a carbon cutting program, $6 are generated by private investment. And from a public health standpoint, billions and billions are saved per year. With clean air and clean water, Californians are more healthy and can work more. So you may ask, why has California, which is responsible for only about 1% of the world's greenhouse gases, gone all in to combat climate change? You may say, who do you think you are? Well, we're a state that has a 1,000-mile coastline along a Pacific Ocean that continues to rise. We have an ever-growing and vast western desert. We have agricultural valleys that were once thriving that are now thirsting for water, and forested mountains that seem to be locked into a year-round fire cycle. It's the in-our-face reality check that our governor refers to as an existential threat. Considering what's at stake, even with what California has already done, some people say it's not enough. Amid the uncertainty about climate and our future, there are 2 things that you can be sure about. California will always be criticized, and California will always go its own way, whether you like it or not.